On the East Coast United States, public transit and flights are expected to resume as the massive snowstorm that killed 19 winds down. Syrian state TV reports the last rebel-held town in Latakia province has been captured by the army. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reverses the defense minister's decision to evacuate Jews from buildings in the West Bank likely purchased illegally. Good afternoon. You're watching I-24 News. The end of a massive blizzard is in sight on the east coast of the United States. The near-record snowstorm struck Friday and Saturday, killing 19 people and affecting some 85 million residents from the Gulf Coast to New England. Now the tough task of digging out begins, and officials hope to lift travel bans and partially reopen public transit later today. ABC News has the story.
Tonight, millions of Americans in the Northeast still socked in from a crippling snowstorm.
Didn't expect to be caught in the middle of Snowzilla.
Even the D.C. police chief stepping in to shovel out stuck patrol cars. So much snow, the plows can't keep up. At the Jersey Shore, roads flooding with chunks of ice floating by and water levels reaching 8 feet. Governor Chris Christie praising residents who heeded the early warning to evacuate.
This is my 17th snow emergency in 6 years, so we know how to do this.
Further west in Pittsburgh.
It's just been one after another truck stuck. It's just nonstop, and it don't seem like we're getting anywhere, to be honest.
The Pennsylvania Turnpike turned into a long, stalled snake. Many commuters spending 15 hours in their frigid cars.
We haven't had any food since yesterday.
In New York City, a full travel ban, bridges and tunnels closed. With virtually no cars on the streets, people are walking right down the middle. So far, 3 people have died from shoveling snow here. As you can see, over 25 inches of snow have fallen here in the city alone. The good news is that it's beginning to taper off, and the travel ban could be lifted as early as tomorrow morning.
And in other news, the Syrian government is reporting on state TV that regime forces recaptured the last rebel-held town in the western coastal province of Latakia today. Senior Russian military officials were also reportedly overseeing some areas of the fighting. Now, in eastern Syria, at least 63 people, including 9 children, were killed in Russian airstrikes, according to a monitoring group. Earlier, we spoke with Middle East editor for Israel Public Radio, Iran Singer, about the latest updates.
Of course, that they could not have achieved this goal without the immense or without the very big help that they're now being provided with by the Russian forces from the air. At the same time, we're hearing reports coming from the eastern part of Syria, Deir Azor, not far away from the border with Iraq. At least 63 people, as you've just mentioned, have been killed in another attack by the Russian, apparently another aerial attack by the Russian Air Force. Another question mark is here in this specific event. What do they try to target the Russians? And how come that in the last weeks we have been seeing more and more children and women being killed in these attacks that are conducted by the Russian Air Force?
Israeli security forces acting on intelligence provided by the Shin Bet agency arrested 3 members of a terror cell near the West Bank city of Tulkarem on Friday. In an unusual development, one of the suspects is a member of the Palestinian Authority's General Intelligence Service. He reportedly aided the 2 other cell members in carrying out a gun attack on IDF forces last week, injuring 1 soldier. Meanwhile, disputes within the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition have erupted once again, this time over the settlement policy in the West Bank. Head of the right-wing Jewish Home Party, Naftali Bennett, is demanding the reestablishment of a special ministerial committee for settlement authorization, taking the sole authority away from the defense ministry. This in response to Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon's orders to evacuate Jews from 2 buildings in Hebron, likely purchased illegally. Netanyahu announced this morning at his weekly cabinet meeting that Ya'alon's decision is not final.
We must respect the rule of law. As soon as the acquisition process is approved, we will allow the inhabiting of the 2 homes in Hebron, as happened in similar events in the past. The checking process begins today. We will make it as quick as possible. And anyway, if it is not over within a week, I will make sure a status report will be given to Cabinet.
And moving now to Portugal, where voting kicked off this morning in the presidential election. Opinion polls last week suggested the center-right candidate, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, would win the first round by a slight margin. Now, his victory could calm the stormy political waters if he delivers on promises to build consensus rather than broaden divisions. And French President Francois Hollande began a 3-day visit to India today, where he hopes to strengthen strategic ties with the nation that had the fastest-growing economy in 2015. His visit raised hopes that a multi-billion-dollar agreement to sell New Delhi 36 fighter jets would finally be sealed. And now to the U.S. race for the White House. With 9 days to go before the Iowa caucus, the showdown between Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz has taken the main stage for conservatives. The two candidates are dominating the polls ahead of the February 1st caucus in the state. Conservative commentator Glenn Beck officially endorsed Ted Cruz on Saturday while at a rally at Faith Bible College in Iowa.
If you make a choice and it allows, quite honestly, Donald Trump to steamroll through, it will be over by the time it gets to Texas, and I believe my children's future will be lost. But for the first time in 40 years of broadcast, I have found a man that I know I can look into his eyes and his word is his bond. That's why today I have officially endorsed Ted Cruz.
If a politician has lived 60 years of his life supporting partial birth abortion, then we should not be surprised if, as president, they would not defend life or marriage or religious liberty either.
And we finish in Brazil, where authorities announced plans to prevent the spread of the Zika virus during the Olympic Games this summer. I-24 News reporter Tamara Zeev with the details.
Alarm over thousands of birth defects attributed to the Zika virus spread across Latin America over the weekend as the United States expanded a travel warning for pregnant women. With the sting of a mosquito bite and a fever, many pregnant women may not know they caught the virus until it strikes their unborn child. Now authorities in some Latin American countries are warning women to avoid getting pregnant for fear of the virus. Babies across the region and at least one in the United States have been born with abnormally smaller heads, a condition doctors call microcephaly, which can cause brain damage. The scare has struck hardest in Brazil, which will host the Summer Olympic Games in August, and which is currently getting ready for its annual world-renowned carnival with warm-up street parties.
I'm almost 6 months pregnant. I'm very worried. I always use bug repellent to protect myself. I'm trying not to become crazy or paranoid, like by being afraid to leave the house over concerns about catching the virus. But I avoid wearing dark clothes because they attract mosquitoes, and I wear bug spray all the time.
Authorities in Rio de Janeiro announced plans to prevent the spread of the virus in the lead-up to the Summer Games.
The risk of the virus is lesser in winter, and as the Games will take place in August, there is a lower risk. The best protection against the proliferation of the virus is to eliminate the carrier, that's the mosquito. So we are taking that into consideration with daily inspections in all of the Olympic installations.
The Dominican Republic also reported 10 confirmed cases of the virus. World Health Organization spokesman Christian Lindmeier said there have been 3,893 suspected microcephaly cases in Brazil, including 49 deaths since October. Brazil's health officials say they're convinced the jump is linked to a sudden outbreak of the Zika virus, though the mechanics of how the virus might affect babies remain unclear.
And that's all for now. Join us again in 20 minutes' time for the latest breaking news.